Greetings and welcome to our next project. This is going to be an 8.5 by 11 inch flyer for a festival about animals at the Grand Canyon. And so this is all fake, but it's a bunch of images that I have taken. So in terms of copyright, I own all of them, and you get to see my dog as well. So this project builds upon our last projects in this series, if you've watched them. And when we are done, we're going to go through and talk about how to save this file in a number of different formats. You'll be turning this in if you're in a class as a JPEG file, but we'll also talk about TIFF and other file formats to get this ready to go to print. So that's our progression with our projects here. We're going to talk a little bit about selections and masking. I've already done a few things, and I'll point out some stuff as well that are included in the current Adobe Certified Associate exams for Photoshop. And so we're just trying to get you a little more into your arsenal of things that you know, but also building upon all of the things we've covered before. So before we get going, let's take a look at the sample file, and this will be in your downloads. There is a zip file for this, and it is called Pet Festival Flyer. Inside there, you're going to have a template file, which we'll open in a second. There is a JPEG file that is the finished file as a sample. And here is my sample PSD file. So this is our end goal for this video. And you can see Cooper here, so instead of just calling him the dog, he is my Puggles, and you can see he wears tuxedos and is all ready to go to the festival. We have this file that is separate. The background files are also pictures of the Grand Canyon, and the rest of it we will build inside of Photoshop. Now, to keep things moving along and not spending a half an hour on how to set up a file, the template that I have already has all of the guidelines built out and ready to go. And so we'll get that going here in a minute. So this is really a marriage of some source files as well as a lot of Photoshop work. And we can see here in the finished layers, we have text files. We're going to talk a little bit about getting that nice curve on it. We're going to do a little bit of filtering. We're going to do some layer stuff as well. And it builds upon what you've been either doing in class or with the ones that you've been watching in this series before. So I'm going to close this file. And I'm going to go and open up the festival. And I want to open up this folder just to show you what's in here again. So we have the sample file. There is the finished one we would send via email. It's a high resolution JPEG, so 300 dpi. Then we have the PSD, so you can always go back and take a look at the construction of it. But most importantly, we have our template here. It's nice and blank, so I'm going to open it up in a second. But we have the sample files will actually go in here when I'm finished, and then we have our source files as well. So if you never see the sample files in the folder here, that means I've put them in this folder. You know what I'm going to do? Just to make things a little bit more straightforward, that's what you would be looking at. So still building it as I'm doing this. And then our source files, which we'll be pulling from, we have dog with selection PSD. This is a Photoshop document, and this has selections built in. This is the original dog file, the picture I took, and then my Grand Canyon file as well. And just as an FYI, these came off my iPhone. These didn't come off of a DSLR, and they work good enough. We'll talk a little bit about the dog and Cooper and how he looks like, but for the most part, they would work perfectly fine for this. Big thing is copyright. You've gone through that in some previous videos as well, and if you haven't, then it's a good time to go and do some Google searches and Yahoo searches on copyright law. Bottom line is you should always own all of the files that you work with, either purchasing them, taking them yourselves, or buying them from another photographer or from a stock photo house. Purchasing them is important. Just think of it this way. I had a student ask me once, like, why does it matter? I go, yes, it does, because if you build something, you took a photo, you created a video or audio that would be used like this, you would want to be paid as well. So I'm a huge believer in purchasing, getting rights, making sure those things are taken care of, because you never want to pass along more expenses to your client. And in the end, if the client uses something you built and it was illegally obtained, it's not only you, but it's the client also who is responsible for any claims afterwards. So once again, there's tons of stuff out there. There's free things. There's all kinds of stuff. There is no reason at all for you not to have the resources you need thanks to the internet. So let's get started. I want you to open up the letter size template.psd, and I want to talk about this very quickly. And I actually notice I am missing one guideline down here at the bottom. And I will fix that before we are done here. And give me 1 second. The magic of video editing. So I actually came in and added in the guideline that was missing. So now we are all the way around perfect. So let's talk a little bit about what we have here. We have a bleed out here on the edge, and we have our margins inside here, and then we have our live area for our layout. And if we had just created a document, if we just did new and did 8.5 by 11, we would not have the layout we need to actually build this document. So I have created this. We wouldn't have our bleed, we wouldn't have our margin, we wouldn't have everything we need. So what I have done is pre-built this out for you so you don't need to worry about it. It is set up to the correct size. So if we had done this by hand, we would have to go in and create each of the guidelines here and everything else. Good news is I've done it for you, because in the previous lesson video that I did, which was the 4x6 postcard, we went through and created that. So it's the same steps if you want to go through it. I just want to cut off 15-20 minutes on this video and keep going. So this is our layout that we're going to be working with. We have a white background. We'll start with that, but we'll be adding some color into this as well. And just as a reminder for myself, as much as I would love to say I remember everything I do when I work, I am going to open up my JPEG file, and just so I have it as reference. So this would be my thumbnail if I'd done this by hand. So we're going to work on this as our kind of thumbnail to kind of jump back and forth, and it reminds me where I left off as well. And what I like to do with any project is work backwards, forwards. So the things that are in the background is what I'm going to bring in first. They're our largest areas. And as we go, we'll layer it out. And that's the great thing with Photoshop, is all these elements end up becoming their own layers. So what I'm going to do first is the background. And I want to get a color in there. And this is very earthy colors, you know, the Grand Canyon, the reds and the browns, and you got a little bit of snow in here too, I think, in the photo. I want to work with those, and so I want to get kind of a tan brown in the background. Plus, he's a nice tan color as well, Cooper. So I am going to come back to my layout. I have my background into my layers. And if you don't have the same layout that I do, you need to go Window, Workspace, Reset, Graphic, and Web. So that resets it. And that gives me all of my stuff. One thing I am going to change is from my libraries to properties. But we need layers, we need character, and we need our tools over on the left. So that should do it for you. Workspace, graphic and web, and then reset it. We can always create our own workspaces. That's something that we will cover later on, but for right now, this is what I need you to do. I did go full screen with this, so I hit the little green. If it's PC, you can go full screen as well. Remember, I don't cover key commands. I always try to do a pull-down menu. Every once in a while, I might do copy and paste. That's Control or Command. Control for the PC, Command for the Mac. And I will call those out too. So first thing I'm going to do is I need a solid color in the background. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, and you can see what it does here. Draws a nice box. And I'm going to draw a box that covers my entire layout. Now, if you're not seeing the borders around here, let's say it's all you're seeing is the white because of the size of your screen, remember you can do View, Zoom in, Zoom out, and Fit on Screen. If I do Fit on Screen, you'll see it fits. I can zoom out a little bit, or Command minus or Control minus. So Fit on Screen and backing up one step is pretty much right where you need to be. We will zoom in and out on this as well. And so I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to start drawing a rectangle. And I'm not starting right on the edge. I'm starting outside here. I'm just drawing it so it bleeds way past. And the color I had selected, I guess, was a blue from one of my previous projects, which is fine for the moment. And under your layers, you now have the rectangle. 1. And you'll notice this is a vector-based object because of the little icon here. And I'm going to name it background color. I'm going to double-click on the little icon, and that opens up my color picker. So I'm going to come and grab a tan orangey color for right now. I may adjust this. It doesn't have to be exactly what I pick. Pick something, whatever feels good to you about it. Right there, how's that? And I do this a lot. As much as I love to say pick X, Y, Z, and these are the colors, RGB and the hex number, I like to choose. I like to work with it. This is just the way even when I worked with paints and pastels, I never had a specific mix. It was how I felt. And so this is more the creative side. I know it's a very simple thing, just choosing the color, but if we find out it's too light, too dark, guess what? We can always come back, double click, and make the change. So I grabbed a brownish tan color, something in there is good. So first thing we're going to do is we need to bring in our photo of the Grand Canyon. We're going to use it twice. We're going to use it up at the top, and then we're going to fade out. Then we're going to use one at the bottom, and we're going to apply some filters to it. So first thing we need to do is I'm going to select background color under layers. I'm going to do a file, place embedded. Just as a reminder, place linked means you always have to have the other file. We would always have to have the Grand Canyon image for this document to pull from. So we're linking it. It's not embedded in the file. So I need to embed this. So I'm going to do place embedded. And I'm going to go, in my case, my files are on the desktop. Sorry, there's a few others there as well, but it's the Pet Festival flyer. And I'm not going to look at samples, but I'm going to look at source. And it's the Grand Canyon. And I'll hit place. And we get a photo of the Grand Canyon. You see, actually this was a recent trip there. I took my daughter, and there was it actually snowed the day before. We had about 6 inches of snow in the area. So some very pretty pictures, and it was a beautiful blue sky day, and I want to use this blue sky as part of my layout. So if we look here, you can see I've used it up at the top. I blew up the image, and then we used it again down here. So, whoops, anyone see what just happened? That was my fault. I don't know if you noticed, when I came back, the image disappeared. And the reason is I did not double click on the image and set it. So I have to do that one more time. I'm glad that happened, because if it ever happens to you, the way you fix it is come place the image again. That was my fault for not setting it. When you have this X in there, that means the image is not set. So I'm going to come up. I'm using the Move tool. I can grab one corner and hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. And once again, this isn't precision. I don't know exactly how much I want here or how far down, but that looks pretty good. And I'm going to double click or hit enter on the keyboard. It sets the image. So that's the first part. I'm going to have text up here, and I'm going to have a circle, and I have the dog image, and I have text down here. But this hard line isn't working for me. So I'm going to rename this first. I'm going to call it Top Grand Canyon, because that's the top part. You notice I'm trying to name everything something I'll remember. So double click on the name, type in Top Grand Canyon. I have my layout. I'm happy. Now I want this to fade into the background. What we're going to do is we're going to put a gradient mask on this. It's one of these little things that you learn, and I guarantee you can wow people with this left and right. I've had veterans designers go, how do you do that? And I'll do 2 or 3 quick steps, and this is how you do it with a mask. And so if any of you have ever done airbrushing or painting, you mask off an area, and then you can paint around it, peel it off, and it protects whatever it is. So in this case, we're going to put a mask on this layer, but then we're going to put a gradient as the mask. That way it shows through in the lighter areas and not in the darker. So we go from solid, 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 solid to fade, 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 and no line right into the background color. And the way we do that is under layers, you select your image, and at the bottom, at the very, very bottom, we have add layer mask. Little box with a circle in it. I'm going to click on it once. This adds the mask. You notice it's a solid white, so we're masking the entire layout. Make sure the mask is selected, not the photo. You'll notice there's a little, it's outlined with white. It's there. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to come and grab the gradient tool. It creates a gradual blend between colors. Well, we're going to do the reverse. We're going to use it as the mask. So I'm going to click on it once, and most importantly here, up at the very top under our options, we need to make sure it goes from black to white. Not foreground to transparent and not foreground to background. Black to white. If we choose any of these other ones, it will not give us a true blend. So it goes from solid to transparent here because it's a mask. I'm going to come in over my image. I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to click somewhere right on the horizon here. I'm going to click and drag, but I'm not going to go past the end. See this little line? I'm going to go to about 1/4 of an inch above. Now I'm going to let go, and look what happened. Doesn't look right, does it? I did that on purpose. If you do Edit, Step, or Undo, Command Z, and this time I'm going to go from the bottom where I want it to end and up. Hold down the Shift key. We get the nice fade. So it all depends on what color, from black to white or white to black gradient. So if I go from the top down, the darkest area of the mask is here to the lightest. If I go in the reverse, I get light to solid. Don't go here. See that line? You don't want that line. I am hitting the key command for undo, Command Z. So, sorry, key command there, just to speed things up. Nice thing is you can come in here without the Shift key and cause a lot of problems. Look at that. You can do a little bit of a corner to that. The Shift key constraints this line though. And you'll notice I can do this many different ways, and it doesn't go over itself every time. It's a single mask. So if I draw a new one, it replaces the one I had before. So what I want you to do is to fade from bottom up, but we don't want that. We don't want a hard edge, so you need to start above it, hold down the Shift key, and one more time. Now, I want to do this again. I want to make sure everyone understands this. So I'm going to delete my mask. If yours is good, looks something like this, you're like, perfect, looks awesome. If you want to try it one more time, the way to get rid of this mask is delete layer mask. And I am right-clicking or select it and hit the trash can at the bottom. You'll notice it didn't delete the whole layer, it only deleted the mask. So, walking through this one more time, I'm not going to go too slow here, but select your image, select layer, add layer mask. With the layer mask selected, I'm going to come over to my gradient tool, make sure I'm from black to white to black works too, solid to white, solid color to the white, and starting from the bottom up, because it goes from dark to light, hold the Shift key down, click, drag up, and we have our nice fade. So you can see if I had two images here, which we will in a minute, they'll have that nice smooth transition from image to image. And we're going to use this over and over again in my future videos. It is something I like to do in most of my layouts. It is quick, simple, easy, and very effective from a visual standpoint. There are other ways to do this. We can mask and we can paint, but the gradients just make that nice smooth transition between two things, from the solid color to the image. But word of warning, don't ever leave the line. Always start above it. I can even go very short, and that still looks better. I wouldn't do that, so let me undo that. There we go. I can go a little higher. There we go. I have all that dark area right here. There you go. Yeah. All right, enough of that. So now let's do the bottom Grand Canyon. Well, I don't want the image to sit on top. So what I'm going to do is select background color. And I'm going to put this new image between these two. So I'm going to place the same image again. Because we're dealing with a different layer, we can't use the image twice. We can't use this layer twice. So we have to bring it back in. There's my Grand Canyon. And this one I'm going to blow up a lot larger. I really want the canyon down here more than the sky. There we go. I'll double click on it. And I'll call this bottom Grand Canyon. Now, it doesn't look like much right now, right? We're going to work on this. So now we have a nice fade. See that gradient? Look at that. I know it looks a little weird, but I am happy with that. And now the main reason I still have a background color is we are going to apply a couple filters to this, and then we're going to get into our blending modes. We have a lot of different blending modes, and this is where you can get very creative very quickly with it. And just to show you what a blending mode is, if I do darken color, see how that changes quickly, or color burn, or multiply, you can darken. There's an overlay, so it shows through, and we can bring down the opacity. So I'm just playing with this very quickly. Now, before I do that, I'm going to go back to normal. So if you played with any of that, we can jump right back to normal. And I'm going to apply some filters to this. I want it to be a little more artistic. I don't want it to be realistic. So up under filter, we have some artistic, we have 3D. So these are filters, or what we used to call plugins, that do some really cool things, and there's some very specific things that they do. As much as I would love to go through every single one of these and how to apply them, you really don't have the time. So this is where playing with these and trying them out and trying different things is the time you need to put in as someone who's going to use Photoshop. I can't stress that enough. As an instructor and as someone who just does this every day, people ask me, how do you learn this? Well, I was curious. I saw something that looked a specific way, and I had to figure out how it was done. YouTube is great for that. You can type in most of these and say, what are the brushstrokes in Photoshop do? And I can guarantee you someone's gone through all these and showed you how to use them and do all kinds of neat and cool things. In one of our previous lessons, we did noise. We added noise. This time I don't want to do that. That was just from nothing we were building from. But there's some pixelate here. We have some render. I mean, we can even render clouds. And so there's lots and lots of cool things. But what I wanted to play with this time is actually our sketch. Now, depending on your computer, this might take a little longer than what I'm working on. So if it is rendering while I'm talking, you might want to pause it until you're finished rendering, because this does take a lot of computing power. Even on my computer, you'll see in a minute, sometimes it even pushes mine to the limit. So we have all kinds of cool stuff in here, and I am going to choose crayon. Yeah, let's start with crayon. It's going to open up. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. You can see what it did. It applied the crayon. There's also chalk and charcoal. You'll notice these are all black and white, though. Oops, that one didn't really do what I wanted it to do. There's photocopy. So what's happening under sketch is it's turning it into really a black and white sketch. So if you have a photo and you want to change it, the halftone pattern's here. And it was a good place to start, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. Now what's great about this is these are all the filters. So if I close up Sketch and go to brush strokes, it will apply it. There's angled strokes. And you'll notice the rendering down here. I do apologize. Even my computer is a little slow with this. There's dark strokes. because these are large images we're working with. If these are small images, it would be quick. So we have brush strokes here. Then there's artistic. These are closer to the sketch. You'll notice the colored pencil, film grain, underpainting. Let's try watercolor. I think that's where we're going to go with this. And we could change the brush details, and it is rendering, so sorry, it's taking a minute or two here. We have shadow intensity. We can add texture. And you can see it actually made it kind of like a watercolor. There's underpainting. And really what I want you to think about here is, I could sit here and go through every single one of these. Like, see, that one's interesting. I kind of like it. We've lost the focus. It's a good place to start. You know something? I'm going to do underpainting here. But look at all the options I have. As I said, I can sit here and show you every single one of these until the cows come home. And every single thing here. But I think, and I know this, it is better for you to come in here and play. Try out different things. Maybe open a picture of yourself and apply these and see what you can get. So what we're doing here is I'm just trying to introduce you to this tool and these filters and how they work and things like that. But I really want you to try and play. And don't worry, in future lessons, I am going to give you a lot more freedom to play with stuff. And you can come in and try all these different things. But keep these in mind, okay? So we're going to do underpainting. I'm not going to change anything. That way we're all on the same page here. I'm going to hit OK. And look at the difference here. So now I don't have that big of a focus on this, which is fine. You know, this is great. That's what I wanted. And then, you can see I can kind of move this around. So you can see I have a smart filter applied now. And that's important because maybe I don't like this filter. I can go, turn it off, turn it on. So now we're going to use our blending modes. These can also be found up under layer. We have them in here as well. They're somewhere in there, sorry. But there's smart filters that we can turn on. All these things, that was the filter we just had. But I am going to use, we'll start with dissolve. And not much happened, did it? There's multiply. Let's look at darken. Color burn. I actually like the color burn, but let's try linear burn. There's a darker color. There's lighten. There's screen. Color dodge. Linear dodge. Lighter color. There's overlay, which I think is the one we're going to use here, but we'll see in a minute. There's soft light, hard light, vivid light, a little too much, linear, there's a pin light, hard mix, difference, exclusion, subtract, divide, there's hue and saturation, color, and luminosity. So you see we have a lot of very quick things we can apply to this layer as any layer that we want to. And the blending, though, helps blend images together. And there's times we use this in photography. But for here, we're using it more for design. And I think the one was overlay, was it not? Maybe. I'm looking for something a little darker. So I'm thinking color burn here is what we're going to use. And I like that. We're going to leave it right there. And then I'm going to bring the opacity down. So this is for the entire layer. Now you'll notice we have the little zeros here, or O's I mean, and that indicates the filter effects on this. This tells us what it is. And we can always change the underpainting. If I double click on it, it takes us back here. And maybe I'll go, underpainting's not what I wanted. So I double click on the underpainting, and I can go, I don't know, smudge sticks. I have no idea what it did. It made smudge sticks. Maybe colored pencil. I go, yeah, I like colored pencil. I hit OK. It will apply it. And this is the power of Photoshop. Come on. Oh, I like that better. So this is what I mean. My original here was one of the other ones. I don't know what it was, to be honest, but works for me. You can see here, I can maybe move it over a little, move the image around. What do you think? That works? Everyone agree? Sorry, that's what I usually say in class. I can bring the opacity down and let the background show through some. And I'm happy with this. Now you notice we kind of have this glow right in the middle. That is going to go away if we look here. We have an image right over it. Now, it looks like I posterized this in the original, but hey, let's work with what we got here. The other thing we could do is we can apply another gradient mask if we wanted to. So I'm going to do that, even though I didn't do it on the first one. I'm going to apply gradient mask on the bottom Grand Canyon. Now I'm going to grab my gradient tool, and this time I'm going to go Nice, there we go. So from bottom down. So now I've got this kind of area where the two fade out to background and fade back in. And if we look at our gradient masks, one is bottom to top, top to bottom. And this is where that background color comes in now. It's fine, but I think it needs to be a little darker. So I'm going to double click on background color. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. You can see it does affect everything. And I made it a little bit darker. I can always rearrange a little. And I'm happy now. So we have our background place. Now, you can't even really tell what this is, and that's fine. I like depth and I like structure to build on. I could have just not done this and went with a solid background. Made it a little bit darker, be fine. But I'm going to try to get a little bit more creative here. And I wanted to show you the filters and everything else. So I'm going to close this up under my layers. You can see right here the little arrow, because I'm done with those too. So let's look at our layout. Well, we need some text. So we're going to have our first annual Grand Canyon Pet Festival. I'm keeping the fonts fairly simple here. One of the reasons is I don't know what fonts you have on your computer. I'll be honest, I probably would pick different fonts for this, but we'll keep it. So this is Times and this is Impact. This is Times again. I think I went bold on it. So we're going to be working with Times. If you don't have Times, Palantino, Arial, it can be all Impact if you want to. If you want to change the font, go ahead. We haven't gone over typography yet. So I'm going to keep it simple though. And so let's do first annual Grand Canyon. So I'm going to select top Grand Canyon because this is where my text is going to go. I'll grab my type tool. Over here under character, also up here at the top, we have Times New Roman, regular. It's about 30 points, so it's not huge, but that's fine. That's a good place to start. And I'm going to come over and click, and that is bad. The first annual Grand Canyon, I want to put the number 1. So we're spelling it out. So I'm going to type and put in first annual Grand Canyon. I'm going to grab my move tool. I can now move this around. And I do apologize if you are not getting the handles around your type or around your images. Make sure you have the move tool and auto select and show transform controls on. These two need to be turned on. If not, you'll end up with something like this. You go, oh yeah, I can move it, but where's my handles? I can't do anything. Show transform controls and auto select layer. It makes your life much easier. So holding the shift key on your keyboard, select, grab one corner, and I'm going to stretch this to fit. I want it to fit pretty much across for the moment, and then double click. Now, I'm not going to put this above that guideline. You do that, got yourself problems with trimming. So this is as far as my text can go to the edge of the margin. And I am going to put it right up against the margin. You notice when I'm floating, that purple line appears. That tells me it's aligned center on page. So this text box, because that's really what it is, this layer text box, when I click and drag, it should snap to the guideline and align to center. If it is not snapping to, make sure the snap to is turned on. It should already be. But this is where you go to turn on the snap and snap to. Out of the box, Photoshop should already have it on. So if you accidentally turned it off or you turned it off on purpose and don't know where to turn it back on, that is where you go. So we're good there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a drop shadow on this. I'm not going to outline it. I think a drop shadow will help it pop off this background because it's light on light. We need contrast. So I'm going to do the FX down here at the bottom, the layer effects. So I have my first angle Grand Canyon selected, layer effects. I'm going to do drop shadow. Whoa, yeah, we got to fix that. So let's go a little bit back on the distance and bring the size way down. So this really should be around maybe about 20%, distance 8 or 9 or 10 pixels. Size, I'm going to go a little bit bigger. But that helps a lot. See the difference? We can bring the opacity down a little bit. And I love the preview, and there we go. So if I turn this off, I can checkbox. Look at the difference. I like it. And we want to set our styles because we may use this. Now that I've set this, I go, perfect, looks good, I'm happy. I can set the style. So if I select my layer and go up under Window, Styles, this should open up another box for you, our Styles box. And I'm going to create a new style. So a little plus sign, that will create a new style. And I'm going to call this drop shadow text. And now I can use this over and over again. I float over it, there it is. So when we create other type, I can start with this and add to it. Now the next type we have is Pet Festival. So I'm going to grab my type tool and I am going to select Impact this time. So under my characters, I already have it up here, but you can find it. You can see I have a lot of fonts. I'm going to select Impact. I'm going to click Type once. Pet Festival. I'm going to blow it up. Same way. Shift, hold, grab one edge, and double click. So we're going to do this nice little curve. We're going to put a gradient in there and put an outline on it and a drop shadow. So most of those are layer effects down here. So before we go and set the curve, and we're going to use that using the type tool up here under our warp text. But before we do that, let's get all of our color and everything set. So once again, where it says Pet Festival, and I did all caps on this as well, just as an FYI. You can always type back over it if needed. You can also change to all caps here as well. So if you add the type, just show you a little shortcut on type. You go, I don't want all caps. In this case, it did do all caps. So Impact, when you do our shift, when I was holding out shift doing all caps, it's already set. So let's grab, before I jump into that, let's get our stuff set for the type. Select Type Festival down at the bottom where it says FX. We are going to do a stroke. Woo, that stroke's big. I must have been playing with something. So, first thing I'm going to do is bring the size down. Should be on the outside. Blend mode is normal, no opacity. We don't want to overprint on this. Overprint actually, it blends the stroke against current layer contents, but we don't need to do that here. And the color. So I'm going to click on color, and I'm going to select something from the background. So you'll notice when I float over the image, I can grab colors from the background. And a little bit more orange in there. I want to go dark. I still want to have a little bit of orangey red in there. What do you think? Once again, this is not scientific at all. I can always adjust here. I have to pop a little bit, so there we go. I'm gonna hit OK. Excuse me. So we have our stroke, we have our size, position, blend mode, opacity set. Size about 16, 18, somewhere in there. You don't want to go too much. Maybe even 20, 21. Up to you. All this stays, but really setting the color. Now, we can make this the default and reset to default, but let's not play with those right now. We'll come back and do that at another time. Next thing we can do is a gradient overlay. So we want to put a gradient in here, not a color. I mean, we could just come in and do color overlay. I don't think that's going to work unless we have lots of like lizards and reptiles. But we can always make this a solid color. Versus setting the color of the type, we can set the color of the overlay. And there are times we want to do that. But here we want to do gradient. Turn it on, you'll see, boom, we get a nice gradient. Nice. Photoshop is nice to us with setting up a default that works. We're not changing anything here. We're going to leave it. We can reverse it. But what we're going to do is change the colors in the gradient. We can even change the opacity if you wanted to. But I'm going to do gradient on the color. And this time, I am going to change the dark color. And you'll notice I went right on this little handle. And you can move these handles and change the gradient. I'm going to double click on it. And I'm going to choose yellow. And then another darker kind of orangey color. And let's go white. Actually, yeah, let's go into the whites. You like that? I'm asking nobody. I'm asking myself here. As much as I would love to say, oh, I can sit here and pump these videos out and just go step by step, there is a time where I just need to play a little bit. And this is one of them. I need a lighter color in here. That yellow works for all of us. A little orangey right there. I know this is not scientific at all, but I want you to practice. I like that. That works. So I'm going from a white to kind of a orange color. And now that does change my color of my outline a little. So I'm going to go back to stroke. A little darker. There we go. A little darkness to this. There we go. Kind of brown. Dark brown. I don't want it to pop out. And this looks good. So I'm going to hit OK. And here is my type. Now I want to get that curve on there. So there's a few ways to warp in that in Photoshop, but type actually has its own warp tool. So it's right up here when we select the type tool. We select our text, come up under our options, and create warped text. So I'm going to click on it. What's cool is we can do an arc, an arch, a flag, a wave, all these things. Look what arc does. A little too much, I think, huh? I can come in here. Yeah, that kind of works, right? I can really mess it up if we wanted to. We go Pet Festival. That's real important, right? Superhero Pet Festival. You can do vertical distortion too. So you've probably seen text like this. This is how we do it. You can also do vertical if you really want to mess things up. Or you can go arc lower, arc upper, then you go to arch. You'll notice everything's kind of just set to my settings here. I don't really want that, so how do I reset it? If you hit OK, then we're going to have to undo, but if you hit cancel, it'll take you back to what it was. I can go back, And this time I'm going to do arch. I'm going to bring the arch down to about plus 15. Not crazy, but it gave a nice arch to it. Like I said, you can do bulge. There's a shell lower, a shell upper, a flag, wave, fisheye. So you make that a fish if you want to. So we're doing pets with different types of fish or koi or something. We could do that. But we're going to do arch. And once again, I need you to just play with this. Sit here for a minute, pause the video and play. Maybe you like something different than I do. Maybe you do work with the arc and the arc upper and lower. That's fine. Or you just follow what I'm doing. So I want you to play with this. I'm going to stick with arch plus 15 for the bend. I'll move it down. See that nice centering? You know it's on center. We're good. And there's our title. We can maybe play with it a little more, but I'm going to stick to it. This might actually be a little smaller. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and grab one corner of my text and make this smaller. And this is more of a positioning thing. Give myself a little more room. We'll play with this at the end again, but that was just something that popped out at me from a design standpoint. So we have our pet festival. Oh, one thing we didn't do is a drop shadow. So I can select it, come back in, and do drop shadow. Now I'm going to add the drop shadow in. You can see the distance. This is probably where I got that weird distance before from. Make the size a little bit more, spread a little bit more. You can see it there. There we go. And I'm happy. You see that drop shadow. I love depth. And I'm going to say that over and over again. I like to see depth in the layout. And I'm using my arrow keys. When you have something selected, you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to go left, right, up, and down. I'm doing that just, you can hear the clicking. I needed some margin between these two. I could arc the first annual as well. I don't know, let's see what it looks like. I'm going to select it, do the arc, do the 15%. Okay, what do you think? Once again, I'm asking questions. I'm going to do the arc. Yeah, that works for me. See, we just make things up as we go. I think it needs to be brought down a little bit. What I mean by that is we'll set the arc and bring it down to about 10%, plus 10, plus 12. And I'm good. Yeah, that looks better. So the descender here on the Y, this is what we call a descender. It's a little close to our X, actually our type height. I'm okay with it. I would probably play with it a little bit more, but that works. So a little bit of a change from the sample. You can see a little bit different layout, but very similar. I went a little bit thinner on the text, but I went thicker on this one. And I'll save both of these in there as well. So, all right, so we have our first annual Grand Canyon Pet Festival. Now we need to bring in some text down here, and that would be May 19th through 21st at the rim. So let's see if I can remember all of that when I type. And Times New Roman is our default, if not. So I am going to type out May 19th through the 21st. See, I can't remember that for 3 seconds ago. At the rim. And I'll blow this up, make it a little bit larger so it's down here at the bottom. And now I want to just reuse this type again. So I want to talk about layers and duplicating. So I have May 19th through 21st typed out. I'm going to make these a little bit smaller, drop those down. And if I right click on it with my mouse, I can duplicate layer, and that will duplicate it. Or right up here in the pull-down menu, I can duplicate the layer, or I can drag this down to a new layer right next to the trash can. So there's 3 ways to create a new layer. I'm just going to right-click and duplicate. You can also hit the other as well. It'll duplicate it. I'll hit OK. And now I have a layer with all the same settings, all the same type. You can do that with any layer. I'm going to double click on the text with my type tool. Type tool, double click, and we'll do the, I think I had a website on there, right? Yeah. www.petgc.com. So Pet Festival Grand Canyon. This one I'm going to make a lot larger so it fills up the whole bottom because we want people to go to the website, right? Right? Yes, right. And I think this one's good at the size we have it. All right. Now, I want to put a outer glow on this and a little bit of a stroke. So I'm going to start with the May 19th through 20th, 21st at the rim, and I'm going to do a stroke. And this one's going to have to be a little thinner than the ones we've done before. I'm going to do a color. I'm going to go a little darker on this. I'm choosing something in here. You can see almost black. Then go over into the reds. And I like that. Size, what do you think about it? 10 or 11? We'll do 10. 10 points. Then we're going to do an outer glow this time. So down here we have outer glow. Turned it on. Opacity, we'll bring it up a little. The size, we don't want to go too huge on this. The spread we're going to keep very low. And for the color though, I am going to grab one of these lighter yellows. And the reason for that is white's just a little too bright. You may even bring the opacity down a little bit on it. You can see it's not crazy on it. And we can even put a drop shadow on it if we wanted to. But I'm not going to this time. You can see it gets very dirty. So I'm not adding a drop shadow to it. And I'm happy with it. But before I hit OK, I want to apply this to my next line of text. There's a couple ways to do this. I could have just done all this and duplicated, but I wanted to walk through this. We had created a style before from our text up here. You can do that from this window as well. Right over here we have new style. So if I click on it, I can call it bottom text. It's going to include all of my layer effects, and it's going to add it to my current library. Your library follows you with your Adobe account in the library. It's right over here on this little tab. So it adds it so we can use it in other documents in the future. So if you build a very complex layer style, we really have not done that, and we may not even get to that, but if you build, everything's turned on here, and you've got all kinds of settings, you can create the style directly from here, name it, and we now have that as a style. So if I hit OK, you'll see all the effects appeared. Then I can come in here and select Pet Festival, go up under my styles, and it's right here, bottom text. Click on it, and there is my. So I'm going to move this down a little bit. I'm pretty happy here. So I want to make sure all of these are aligned. All of these layers here are aligned. So I can use my move tool and click on the first, hold down the shift key, click on the second set of text, third set, and the fourth. Or I'm going to deselect out here, come under my layers and hold down the shift key and select all 4 of those layers. And up at the top under options, you'll see right here, we have align horizontal centers. It's going to align everything right down the middle for these 4 objects, not the background, because I did not select it. I click, And you saw everything kind of shifted a little bit. And I can actually move all of this with my arrow keys, or I can click and drag them all because they're all selected together. And that looks great. I'm happy. You know something we haven't done? And that's bad. So you can hit me over the head with this one. We have not saved this document. So I'm going to do a save as. And I'm going to put this inside my Pet Festival flyer or wherever you want to save it. I do suggest you put it in the same file. So I went on my desktop. I went into my Pet Festival. And I'm going to call this 03 underscore, oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to put my last name, first name, because I need to, when everyone turns this in, it makes my life easier for grading. We'll call this module 3, and we'll keep it simple like that. So I know what it is, module 3, last name, first name. We need to save it. Or you can just save it whatever you want, but rename it later. I'm not saving over my template. It'll still be blank. Make sure this says Photoshop. I should have done this at the very beginning. I apologize, but hopefully you knew to save your work. So I've saved it. I can now work on it and continue. So let's talk about our dog in the middle here. We have Cooper. So here he is, all his glory. I'm going to do a file open. And I'm going to go into my source files. And I'm going to open up dog with selection. Now, I've given you the original JPEG. I've made this much easier for you than it normally would be because I have gone in and already knocked him out of the background. We will go through masking in later videos. This was really about how to select from a file that already has a mask in it. And this is something that you're going to run into on the Adobe Certified Associate exam. It's in the exam objectives, is how do you load selections? So I've already created that for you. So when you open up the dog with selection.psd, you see Cooper sitting at the park in his tuxedo. And this was Halloween, and he was Special Agent Dale Cooper. So for those of you Twin Peaks fans, I couldn't resist a dog named Cooper not being Agent Cooper. So anyway, that's his little suit that he's wearing. And we need to knock him out of the background. If we look here, he's knocked out. So I've already done that, and we will be going over that in more detail. But for this project, you have been given the file with a selection already in it. And you would do that maybe with stock photography. You buy stock photos of a cup, and it has a white background. One of the things stock photo houses do, so photos that you buy from companies, is they'll give you the selections. You don't have to sit there and knock out the selection. So what we're going to do is we're going to load the selection. And now there's two ways to do this. The first way is going under our select and load selection. You'll notice the document and the channel. I called it dog selection. I hit OK, and the dog is selected. If your file does not have selections, you have to do this by hand. Once again, we will go through quick masking and selections in the next projects. This time, though, I want to speed things up. So I can use my selection tool, or rectangular marquee tool. Sorry, I should call it what it is, but I have a bad habit of calling it the selection tool. I'll click once, and that deselects. You can also go under select and deselect. So we have another way to pull it up, and I need to pull up the correct channels. So under Window, if you go to Channels, you should have a channel in here, right there. See, it says Dog Selection. There is the mask. I can click on Load Channel as a selection. and I can pull it up that way. So there's two ways to do it. You can load the selection, hit OK, or you can go into Channels, select Dog, click once, and it will load it. We can also map. We can save it as a channel if we wanted to. So there's a few different ways to do it. We're going to stick, though, with select, load selection. And the reason I bring this up is, once again, it is part of the test. It is something that is part of the overall examination at the end. You will do something very similar to this in the practice and the other. So, hit OK, select, load selection, and load the dog. Now I can copy and paste it in, or I can drag it over using the Move tool, click. Look, the reason I can't is because the layer. So I'm going to do the copy paste on this one, old school, edit, copy. So I've now copied the dog, go back to my festival, paste them in. But look what happened. I ended up with just the outline. And the reason is I just have this selected under channels. I have to have RGB selected. So if that same thing happened to you, the reason that happened was I only had the selection in the channels on. So I'm going to do something here. I'm going to close this and reopen it. And that will reset it. So now, you notice I don't have it selected. I do select, load selection, hit OK. Now I can copy. I believe I can drag, click, hold, and drag if you want it. You can click, hold, drag, or I just hit delete to get rid of them. Once he's selected, I can copy or edit, copy, and edit, paste. And there's our dog. So we have him. I'll kind of put him off to the side here, or I'll just put him in the middle. I'm going to turn him off. So let's name the layer, call him dog. Anyone notice what I did out of order? I did this on purpose, just to show you that sometimes you make a decision, you go, oops, I should have done something else before. I should have drawn the circle in before I brought in the dog, right? From a layout perspective. So I've already brought him in. I'm not going to change him. So I can turn off the eye. And I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. So I'm going to draw a circle. You hold down the Shift key, it will draw a circle. And if you throw in the Option key at the same time, so Shift key draws a circle. You don't want this. You want an oval. Shift key draws circles. But if you throw in the Option key, it will draw from the center out. So if you just remember the Shift key, there's my circle. And it's okay that it's white. I'll grab my Move tool, and I can resize this holding down the Shift key until it fits. Now you know why I did my text at the bottom before I brought in my dog. See the nice purple lines for guides? Snap to. So I'm going to call this circle background. And if I turn my dog on, look what happened. They are out of place. So I can grab my dog layer and drag it up above circle background. So once we have that in, I've got my dog. I'm going to grab one of these corners. Now, before we do anything, I'm going to show you something, and I don't want you to do what I'm about to do, so just watch. If I grab one corner and hold the Shift key with my Move tool, I'm going to scale down our dog. And I go, I don't know, I'm being goofy, and I make him really tiny. I go, what does it look like? Wow, he's cool. I got to blow him back up. I blow him back up, and look what just happened. I end up with garbage. So how do we fix that where if I do size them, I can blow them back up and work with them. We work with smart objects. So I am going to undo back a couple clicks, and that's actually a different key command, but once again, I didn't want you to try that. If you did, you need to go backwards a few steps. And remember, History Palette, from some of our previous videos, allows you to move backwards and forwards if you need to. So the History Palette can do that for you. Just wanted to show that. So now, I select my dog, and over here, if you right-click on the layer, or hit the pull down, there's a Convert to Smart Object. I want you to convert the dog to a smart object. That now allows us to blow him up and shrink him down. Small. Oh, that's great. Looks good. No, it's not good. I can blow him back up. Now, I can't go past what he was before, but that will give us the ability to blow him back up to this size if we ever go smaller. He's a smart object at this point. He's a smart dog too, but he's a smart object. So now we need to scale him down to fit and overlap. So I want his head to overlap. I don't care about his legs so much here. About right there. That's kind of a nice overlap, isn't it? You can even overlap him a little bit bigger. Bring him down. That looks good. I don't care that it's overlapping the text a little. Let's scale it down a little more. There we go. And I like that, so I'm going to double click on it. Now, how do we get him inside the circle? Well, this actually has to do with masking. So we need to get a mask created for the circle. So we're going to do that under the layers. So what I want you to do is select the circle background. We need to make a selection, and then we're going to make a mask of that selection. The first thing we're going to do, though, is select the circle background. And we're going to go under our window, and we're going to go under paths. So window, paths. This opens up the path palette. So anytime we draw something that is vector-based, it's going to create a vectorized outline, or what they call a path in Photoshop. So this circle is a path with a fill inside of it. So it has a white fill with a path around it. You'll notice under our path tools, we can make a selection. The thing is, though, we have to set the path first. So this is one of those little double-click things you have to do. If you double-click on Circle Background Shape Path and hit OK, we end up with 2 of them. Now, look what we got here, though. We have handles. We have an outline. This shows us the path. And what I can do now is load path as a selection. So I'm going to do that. So we now have the path as a selection. We can also make a mask of it. But if I do that, it adds the layer mask to this background. That doesn't really help me all that much. I can make it and drag it, but I want to walk through these steps. Now, I am going a little bit the long about way, but it allows me to explain what we're doing. I've made a selection that I want to create a mask out of, using the circle so I know it's the same exact size. Hopefully that makes sense. Now I can click on the dog. The selection stays in place. And I can create, and I can add a layer mask, but look over here under Path Still. I can add the layer mask to it. Did anyone see what just happened? Let me undo. Under Paths, there's a layer mask. Add it. So what it does is it creates a mask that's the exact same size as the circle in the background. Now there's a reason I'm keeping these separate. I want to apply things to the background and to the foreground. So I click on it, and we get the dog mask. It's there. So now, great. I can go in and grab my circle background. I'm going to put a stroke on it. But look at his head. Doesn't look right, does it? He's not sticking out the way he is over here, right? Well, we'll fix that. But I'm going to put the stroke on the circle background. So I'm going to come down to my layer effects, and I'm going to go into my stroke. And let's put a much bigger stroke on this. And maybe same color here. Something a little lighter, a little darker. Yeah. We need to go lighter on this. Same orange or something that works. So I'm happy with that. And maybe a drop shadow. I'll apply it. Get a little bit of a distance on it. Once again, I like the drop shadow. But okay. And actually, if I hit OK, I still have a white background. That doesn't really do anything here, does it? You can see on our sample, I did a gradient. So let's go in here, circle background, and let's drop a gradient in there. A gradient overlay this time. Bam, look at that. Nice and quick click. I like that. So I'm going to click and change the color. So I clicked on the gradient, clicked on the handle, clicked on color. Look at that. Got a dark brown there. That looks cool. And let's change this to be a little bit more, not white. It's another color. There he is. There's Cooper. Okay. Maybe the stroke needs to just be a little darker. I know I'm being picky and I'm doing what I always do. I play. But, you know, there we go. And I'll hit OK. But now I got a problem. Cooper's head is not where I need it to be. So we're going to use a masking mode that I really like. You'll notice we have the mask applied already. So 3/4 of our masking is done. We did that using the circle and applying the mask from the selection over the dog. So there's the background, there's the dog, there's Cooper in there. So if I go under Select and I have this layer selected, I go under Select and select a mask, and we do want to have the mask selected. So Select and mask. It's going to open up a slightly different interface. We get new tools. We have a quick selection tool, a refine edge brush tool, a brush tool, a lasso, a hand tool, as well as a zoom tool. And over here we have edge detection and all kinds of stuff. This is great if we have the whole image, and this is actually how I knocked him out of the other picture. What we're going to do though is we're going to make all of this reappear right here. So the mask will continue out and allow anything on this layer out here to be shown. So to do that, we're not going to make a selection. We could use the quick select tool. Actually, see how it kind of starts selecting him? But I found a much quicker way to do this is the brush tool. Because we don't have anything else here, I can actually come in here and paint and have him reappear. But in this case, I'm going to change the size. And you'll see, as I paint over, his little head pops back into place. That looks good. Just make sure I've gotten it all. Now, anything on this layer now inside this mask would appear. So the original over here, that's what it was. Once I painted that out, his little head popped out. Now, we're going to go over this in much more detail. We'll be working with some images in future lessons and stuff. But I wanted to show you this real quick way of doing it because we had already isolated him. We had isolated the circle and made it a mask. All we were doing was adding to this, and this tool is an awesome tool. I use it all the time now. It's in the newer versions of Photoshop. So his head's now popping out. The key, though, is we need to create the mask before. So if you're having trouble at this point, what I really suggest is stop, go back, and watch how we created the circle mask. Then once you have that created and he's inside the circle, then come out into our mask tool here. We'll hit OK. It applies it, and we've got Cooper popping out there. Now, this image came off an iPhone. So we're done with the masking. You can see the mask here in the channels. You can see the mask over here. It's a combination of that circle selection. We loaded it as a selection, use it as a mask, create a mask from the selection, then added to the mask under select and mask. Works out well. If I hadn't done that though, when I start masking here, I wouldn't have that nice circle all the way around. So that was why I did it. There's other ways to do this. Probably, honestly, there might be some quicker ways to do it, but I find that always works for me. So I'm going to use this before I talk about the image. I'm going to make a few more adjustments using my arrow keys to tighten this up. I like where he is. If I move this, look what happens. Don't want to do that. Oops. So, with that said, if you want to move both the dog layer and the circle, you need to hold down the Shift key and select both. And then you can move them. I like that. I'm happy. I might even make this a little bit smaller and use my arrow keys just to kind of move into position. We'll do an alignment here in a minute. But there's our pet festival. The last thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about this image. It's a little soft. There's not much I can do about it because it did come off an iPhone, and I was a few feet away from them. But we can do a few things to help it. So we're going to go under Image Adjustments. Now there's Auto Tone, Auto Contrast, and Auto Color. If I run these, see that little bit of a change there? I'll undo. They work really well. So Auto Tone, Auto Contrast, and a little bit of Auto Color. Gets the green in here a little more, his browns are tighter. These are really quick ways to do some adjustments. Now I'm going to undo those. And to do that though, I have to hold down my Command Option Z or History Palette. See the Auto Contrast, Auto Tone. I'm going to go back to Nudge. And I'm going to go up under Image Adjustments, Levels. I'm a little old school with my color correction. I can do this in levels. I've done it for years and actually almost decades at this point. So I can make some adjustments here. And what I like to do is it's peaking over here on the left, which is my R. I can pull this in a little bit. And look at his jacket here. It goes from kind of a grayish to a much blacker, right in the middle of that peak. I'll bring this in. And then my middle one is where I can bring things back out, but keep the dark, so this is the G. And he has, a black muzzle and stuff, so there we go. Just adjusting a little bit. And we're going to do this with photos in some next videos, but I wanted to show you the difference here. There's the original, and there's my adjustment with layers. And you can actually see me in the in his eye there. You see the difference? It's very slight, but it helped bring the blacks out. And that's all I'm going to do on that one. We also can sharpen this, and if I zoom in on him, he's a little fuzzy. I don't think sharpening is going to do much here, but we can try it. So we can go to Sharpen. And I like to do an unsharpened mask. We're not seeing much of a change there, to be honest. Now you can really see the change. And I'm going to hit cancel because I don't think we could do much with this image right now. But it's good enough. And I'm using the zoom tool. If you hold down the Option key or the Alt key on the PC, you can zoom out. All right, last thing we're going to do is make sure everything is aligned on center, and then we can save this out, and we have our Pet Festival flyer finished. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to select each of these elements one by one, or if I deselect, go under my layers. I'm going to select everything down to the first Grand Canyon. So I'm going to go circle background, all my text. Because my backgrounds are fine, I'm not going to worry about that. Once I have those all selected, and I'm not selecting the top Grand Canyon and the bottom Grand Canyon, I'm going to select my align horizontal centers. And you'll notice he shifted. So we got a problem. By doing that, I threw off my whole layout. So undo, edit, undo, or in your history palette. So I'm going to deselect him and the circle. And I use the Shift key. Or I'm just going to select the text. And I'm pretty close on this. I don't even think I should be doing this. Yeah, I was only off by a couple clicks. And remember, sometimes the visual alignment is more important than the mathematical alignment. So I'm going to save this, and we are finished with our layout. Last thing we need to do is save the file. Now I want to talk about print here. We're going to be going over this again and again from this point on, but I want to introduce you to color spaces. Up to this point, we have been working in RGB color, red, green, blue. This is screen. What you see on a TV, what you see on a computer monitor, on your phone is RGB. Maybe high def, but it's still RGB. In print, though, we work in CMYK. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is always black because we use B in the RGB, so K is black. And if we were going to print this, we were going to send this out to print, which we would, to put up on posters, on bulletin boards and all over the place for people to come to this festival. We need to convert this to CMYK. Now, sometimes we convert in InDesign, or we convert in other programs. But if I was really going, I don't want to say old school on this, but we were really saving this file for production, we would be saving it as a CMYK TIFF file. So before we do that, I want you to save this as a JPEG file, and that is what you're going to turn into me. I do not want the PSD file. So for those of you who are in one of my classes, you're going to save it as JPEG. If you're just watching this, do whatever you want. So let's do File, Export. We're going to export as. And there's our good old dog, all our stuff. We want to make sure it's JPEG. Quality is set around, let's do 70. That'll make the file size smaller. So this is Joint Photography Groups formatting, JPEG. You've seen it everywhere, your phone, your cameras, we all use it. I don't care about the image size. There's no metadata. Really, it's just JPEG 70 quality, or 70%. That gives us about a 2.4 megabyte file. We already named it. If you haven't, this is the file. It'll be last name, first name, module 3, and I'm going to export all. And this will go into my file here, Pet Festival. If not, go into the folder. So I'm saving it along with my PSD. There's my dog. Everything's good. That's what you need to turn in. I want to talk about CMYK before we finish up here, though. So if I was going to save this file and send it to InDesign or send it to someone for print, it needs to be converted to CMYK so I can see. This is not always the case anymore. 20 years ago, all these steps I'm about to do were mandatory. But now with Photoshop and InDesign, everything working together well, I would probably place this as an RGB Photoshop document into InDesign for production. Or I may just send the PSD file. But a lot of times, you need, well, actually not a lot, you should always talk to your printer. And so I'm going to show you what I would save this as a fail-safe. Like, I know this file will be fine when I send it to a printer. And it's actually, first thing we do is we convert to CMYK. It's going to ask, do you want to flatten this? Yes, we want to flatten it. Now, that converted it to cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. You'll notice under my channels, if you have this open, if you don't, window, channels will open it. You now have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. If I turn these off, you'll actually see how the inks would be printed. So this is a 300 DPI file. We didn't go over that at the beginning, but it is because I created the template, and it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So this is a 300 DPI CMYK file. Now we need to save it in a format that's universal. Photoshop really is not. When it's said and done, it is a Photoshop document. So what we're going to do here is do File, Save As, not Export, but Save As. And make sure you saved all this before we do this. So we're going to call it TIFF, Tagged Image File Format. We're going to save it as a TIFF file. Now if it says layers here, that means you didn't flatten it. You can turn that off and it'll flatten it, because you can save layers in the TIFF. I don't need to though. What this does is it flattens everything. We can't edit this file anymore. But anyone who gets it gets a file they can print or use in another document, like in Design or Quark or anything like that. So same name, I'm just going to call it a TIFF file, put it in the same folder. And I will not be sending this TIFF file in the upload. This is just for show, so you won't have the TIFF in here. I'll hit save. We're going to do LZW compression, so this compresses the file. And leave everything else the same. If you're on a PC, you'll get the IBM PC. I leave it as Mac. If you have layers, it's going to try to compress them. I would discard the layers, but you shouldn't at this point. But LZW compression. Hit OK. You'll notice my file is done. I'm going to close this. We don't want to save your PSD file. Don't save the PSD with the changes that we made. I have samples here, and this is my TIFF file that I saved out. I can close it. So now when I'm all done, look at the differences in files here. Please do not send me, and I'm going to be real blunt about this, do not send me the PSD file. If your JPEG is 190 megabytes, you need to flatten, you need to export the file as a JPEG to send to me. Do not try to send this file. It is a monster. We are working with big files here. So sorry, they are big, but look at the TIFF. It's 18 megs. I don't want that either. But this is a production file at this point. There it is. You can see it takes a minute to render. It even looks funny because it's rendering in CMYK. Look at the difference with my JPEG. So this is for print, 300 DPI CMYK flattened TIFF file versus a JPEG file that's been compressed down. It's good to turn in, put on the web, send to someone via email. But look at the file size difference there. So this is what I need. This is the file. Hopefully you learned a little bit this time. There was a lot of review on things we did before, but we added some new elements in. And we'll continue doing that with all of my other videos and projects as we go along. Thank you again for sitting through an hour and a half of this. But we did cover a lot of territory here, and we got our flyer done with Cooper on it. So thank you again, and look forward to our next time together.